The Stardust hauler was not a vessel of renown. It had no sleek lines, no cutting-edge weaponry, no plush diplomatic suites. It was a workhorse, a colossal, utilitarian box designed for one purpose: moving bulk cargo across vast stretches of inconveniently empty space. Its voyages were long, its crew pragmatic, and its log entries, for the most part, were numbingly repetitive. Jump successful. Nav course holding. Cargo Bay 2 atmospheric regulation nominal. Nutrient paste synthesizer output satisfactory. Its current manifest was particularly diverse. Nestled within its cavernous bays were hundreds of standardized containment units, each holding samples ranging from cryogenically frozen microbial cultures from methane moons to high-pressure geological core samples from nascent terrestrial planets, to carefully shielded specimens of exotic flora and fauna from newly surveyed worlds. Bay 3, in particular, held a collection of samples designated Priority Alpha, research use only, gathered from a cluster of previously unexplored, energy-rich nebulae. Midway through a six-cycle transit between the Kepler Belt and the Xylos Commonwealth, a regular, if tedious, route, a minor tremor rippled through the hauler's frame. Not a critical event, probably just a near miss with some high-velocity space cloud. Or perhaps the captain had hit a less-than-optimal transition point during the last jump. The automated damage sensors registered a non-critical structural stress event in Cargo Bay 3. A tiny, hairline fracture appeared near a primary support strut, causing a minuscule breach in the bay's external plating. The onboard diagnostics noted the breach, logged it as minor hull integrity compromise, passive monitoring only, and rerouted minimal power to a localized atmospheric sealant field, just enough to prevent a complete vacuum, but not enough to maintain the bay's carefully segmented internal environments. Inside Cargo Bay 3, the consequences were more pronounced. The sealant field held the atmosphere, but the delicate seals between individual containment units were compromised by the tremor and the subtle pressure fluctuations. Vials cracked, specialized environmental seals failed, and their contents began to leak and mingle in the zero-gravity environment of the massive bay. Different atmospheres, heavy methane, trace ammonia, nitrogen-rich blends, swirled and mixed. Cryogenic samples warmed, releasing ancient microbes and complex organic compounds into the impromptu, chaotic atmosphere. High-pressure samples vented, dispersing exotic minerals and chemical catalysts. Spores from alien flora drifted alongside cellular structures from fauna adapted to vastly different gravitational and energy fields. It was an accidental, uncontrolled experiment on a grand scale, utterly unknown to the crew whose concerns were focused on jump calculations and meal times. Bay 3, usually a silent, organized repository of alien potential, became a swirling, airborne soup of incompatible biologies and volatile chemistries. The long journey continued. In the sterile silence of Bay 3, something happened. Within the swirling chaos of leaked materials, unexpected reactions occurred. Microbial strains from methane moons encountered enzymes from planets orbiting red dwarfs. Minerals catalyzed reactions between atmospheric gases that should never have met. Complex organic molecules, freed from their carefully controlled environments, began to interact in ways never predicted by human science. A new, localized ecosystem began to form. Not life as most would recognize it. No complex cellular structures or reproductive processes in the conventional sense. It was something else. A dynamic, self-organizing chemical and energetic system. It manifested as shimmering, multicolored films that pulsed with internal light, collecting on the internal surfaces of the bay. As small, geometric crystalline structures that seemed to grow and self-assemble in the zero-G air. As faint, repeating energy signatures that hummed just below the threshold of the ship's standard sensors. It was a novel form of organized complexity, born from the accidental mixing of incompatible ingredients in the darkness of a cargo bay. It was a scientific breakthrough forming in a place where science was only meant to be stored, not created. 6 cycles later, the Stardust hauler docked at the Xylos Commonwealth hub, its journey complete. The unloading process began. Cargo handlers, in their bulky environmental suits, entered Bay 3. Looks weird in here, grumbled maintenance tech Joe Jensen to his partner, Jack. Atmospheric seal must have been leaky. They noted the shimmering films, the strange crystals clinging to the walls. Looks like some samples busted, Jack observed, shining his suit light on a particularly large crystalline cluster. Gonna be a mess to clean up. Log it as contamination. They went about the tedious process of offloading the intact containment units, carefully avoiding the contaminated areas. They dutifully noted in their maintenance report, Cargo Bay 3, minor containment breach detected. Localized biological/chemical contamination present. Cleanup required post-offload. Source: unidentified sample leakage. The official ship's log for the journey would contain a brief entry under maintenance issues. Bay 3 minor breach and contamination, cleaned. The damaged samples and the areas of contamination were flagged for specialized handling upon reaching the research facility on the station. This facility was staffed by scientists like Dr. Anita Rao, a materials scientist with a penchant for analyzing the unexpected. Her job often involved dealing with damaged or contaminated samples from transit. She received the report on the contamination in Bay 3, non-hazardous biological/chemical contamination, likely mixed sample leakage, routine cleanup required. It sounded like a straightforward, if slightly unpleasant, task. But as she began analyzing the collected contamination samples, she noticed the energy signatures, the geometric regularity of the crystalline structures, the way the shimmering films seemed to maintain a constant, internal energy level despite being isolated from any power source. This wasn't just dried microbial growth or reacted chemicals. This was organized. There was a logic to its structure, a consistency to its energy output that defied simple contamination. Dr. Rao ran more sophisticated diagnostics. She cross-referenced the energy signatures with known phenomena, the chemical compositions with standard reactions, the structural patterns with crystallography databases. Nothing matched. This wasn't contamination. This was new. She traced the origins of the leaked samples noted in the hauler's manifest for Bay 3. The microbial cultures, the geological cores, the exotic flora/fauna specimens. Individually, they were interesting. Mixed in the chaotic, unique microenvironment of a slightly leaky cargo bay over 6 cycles of deep space transit, they had become something revolutionary. The shimmering films were a self-sustaining energy transfer medium, capable of drawing power from ambient radiation and converting it into usable energy with almost perfect efficiency. The geometric crystals were a form of self-assembling smart material, capable of complex information storage and basic environmental manipulation. The faint energy signatures were a byproduct of a completely novel chemical reaction pathway, one that could potentially lead to breakthroughs in energy storage or faster-than-light travel theory. All of it, born from an accidental leak in a cargo bay, discovered by maintenance techs who saw it only as a mess, and initially logged by the research facility as routine contamination. The formal scientific papers that would eventually be published would describe the properties of this new material/energy source with precise language and complex data. They would credit the discovery to analysis of samples from the Stardust Haulers Bay 3, perhaps mentioning unique conditions encountered during transit. But the real story, the messy, accidental truth, the minor hull breach, the mingling of disparate samples, the formation of a revolutionary scientific phenomenon in a forgotten corner of a cargo bay because of a bump in the night, that would likely be confined to the maintenance logs, a brief entry about minor breach and contamination. A footnote, a dirty, unexpected footnote in the history of scientific discovery. And Dr. Anita Rao, the scientist who saw past the contamination report, knew that some of the universe's greatest secrets weren't found in carefully controlled labs, but in the chaotic, overlooked spaces in between.